Welcome to the What Now podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Powers. Follow along as I figure out how to go from feeling lost and at a crossroads in my life to hopefully, eventually, being found. If you have ever felt like you needed a change or pivoting from your current experience is necessary, but you just don't know how, join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What Now, podcast for Lost and Found. This is your host, Amanda. How are ya? How you doing? Sorry, I am still trying to get a little bit situated here to record. It's been a minute since I've sat back down. There's been a lot kind of going on in the background of my life. And finally, we have a day here that's sunny outside, and I'm able to sit down and jot down some notes and things about what it is that I wanted to say for the week. But first, let's kind of catch up. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone that reached out about the podcast episodes with my mom. Those came out earlier in January. We did our manifesting for the year for 2025. I interviewed her about her life and her career changes and her trajectories thus far and what she wanted, out of life and what she wanted to be when she grew up and her career as a computer engineer and coder and developer and everything that she did and now does with my family and her opinions about, marriage and rituals and working on her jealousy issues, her anger issues, her self-esteem, and what she's done to, kind of build up her confidence and what she wants out of life and what she wants out of 2025. And then I kind of shared my manifestations for 2025 as well, very similar to what I did with Max Malay, which is an older episode from 2023. I'll be sure to link all of those for you so that way you can go back and listen to them as well if you would like. And those are all really good ones too. And of course, always feel free to DM me about what it is that you are manifesting for 2025. If you made a vision board, I would love to see it. I'm going to put photos up for what my vision board was, so that way you can kind of flip through and see what it is that I've been focusing on and what it is that I'm trying to manifest for myself for 2025. We touched a little bit on within the interview with my mother. We talked a little bit about how I couldn't explain it, but in January on my birthday, I woke up and just kind of had this sensation that I was operating at a higher vibration that day. And for whatever reason, my body was telling me that 2025 it's going to be a really great year. It's going to be really important for you. And so much change is about to happen, but good change. And I was in a really good mood that week for the rest of that time, just kind of waking up. And I don't know if it was because I was still riding the high of getting those tickets to see Bad Bunny. And so I was just really in a happy mood anyway. And it was kind of like a placebo effect, or if I actually just went to sleep at a regular hour and then woke up like I was supposed to and didn't, hit the snooze button or anything like that. So maybe my body was just having a positive reaction to a better routine. I don't know, or it was just the actual universe speaking to me and I was finally listening to my intuition. Who knows? Or it's a combination of all of it. I'm not a scientist. Don't ask me. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's why I'm on this podcast admitting that I'm way behind and making mistakes and learning as I go. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Not a whole lot of anything brand new. I'm still grinding with my media producer, booker, friend who's helping me with the show, trying to work on pitch decks to approach potential advertisers this year, possibly a different pitch deck to approach new guests for this year. So January and February are most likely going to be hustle months. You're going to get a lot of episodes that are just me for now, which hopefully you enjoy that since that's my bread and butter for a bit. But the grind is really important right now. I have been feeling a lot lately that this project is going to require so much more of me, which I guess is kind of a duh thing. If you want to see your business grow, or if you want to see a dream come true, you have to really put forth the effort, Amanda. Of course, obviously, can't come to fruition via magic. Yeah, but I've been having some thoughts and conversations behind the scenes, trying to figure out where to go from here and kind of what to do. And with all of that happening, I have not progressed the show in the way that I had originally envisioned for 2025, but I still think I can move forward in other ways. So that way I'm not feeling stagnant by any means, but what I had on my quote unquote to-do list, the order I thought I was going to do them in, may no longer be the order. And that's okay. And that happens, right? And my life is not set up in a way where I can do 100% what I want. That's all right. And I will get to it eventually. January's already come and gone, which is crazy. The fact that my birthday's over, my brother's birthday was over, is wild to me. I turned 34, he turned 30, and it's just crazy to think that time has flown so much. And I'm sure I read this article or saw it on social media or maybe even another podcast or something like that where somebody was explaining time never actually speeds up or slows down, but it feels like it's faster when you're an adult because there's so much more that you're doing. There's so much more that's going on. So when you're a little kid, everything that you're dreaming about and wanting to create feels like it's so far away. Like I remember, being a pissy teenager and being like, I can't wait till I'm 16 and I can drive and get out of here whenever I want. Or I can't wait till I'm 18 and I can move out and go to college and not have to do XYZ or follow whatever rules my parents have. Or I can't wait to be 21 and finally not have to freak out about whether or not my fake ID is going to work or not. I don't know, whatever. When you're so much younger, you think these ages and these accomplishments are so far away. And then one day you wake up and you've crossed all those milestones, right? Like you've passed it all. And so this past week when I'm hanging out with my brother and his now extended family with his wife and her side of the family, it, just kind of dawned on me like, holy crap, that baby that I met that I went to the hospital to visit my mom, that baby I met is a 30-year-old man with a house and a wife and his own kid on the way. Like it's crazy. And I have realized that like you absolutely don't want to spend your time wishing your life away, trying to hurry yourself up out of an experience just because you're uncomfortable, or hurry yourself up out of an uncomfortable emotional state, or hurry yourself up to get to what you believe is going to make you happy. Because I'm sure it will, for a finite amount of time. But learning to live in the present is so incredibly important. And learning to realize the things in your life that actually bring you joy and actually bring you happiness and actually bring you a sense of purpose or a feeling of purpose. Narrowing down that list and putting your whole heart and whole energy into a shorter list of things is going to help you conserve your energy. It's going to help you focus your time, and it's going to help you spend it as efficiently as possible. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and a lot about what it is that I want to do with my time going forward, and where do I want to invest not only like my finances, but my actual personal experiences, my time. Where do I want to invest places for me to grow? Where do I want to invest more healing, more work? Where are places in my life that are uncomfortable or special? Both. The painful, the suffering and the pain, but also the joy and the satisfaction. I think I need to start paying into both buckets. Both buckets are going to bring me revelation and personal evolution in different ways because they are different, contexts, but I think both are really important. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks, or at least since the last time I had a solo episode. Spent more time with my mom, lots of one-on-one time that we, in a different way. We weren't a very crafty family. My mom did not raise us with a craft room. There are lots of people, or at least a lot of my friends that were crafters growing up, and now they have become crafting moms. And so I can see why engaging that side of your brain is so crucial. So it was really sweet to be able to do that with my own mom. I really liked that. And again, it was just nice to spend some time with family. And we also had some briefings at work. We're getting a lot of great insight and input from some new contracts that we've signed and some more interesting work with new clients, and I think we've got a lot coming in the pipe, or coming down the pike, in the pipeline, and down the pike are two different phrases, and I just mashed them together because I'm an idiot. Just kidding. You know what I meant, though. You know what I meant. We have more work coming in, and that's a great thing for the business. So things are really about to ramp up for spring, and I'm really proud of the teams and everything that they're putting out there. I think it's really good and it's high quality, and they're doing fast turnarounds with really high demand, and they should all be very proud of their work. And I'm hoping the clients are very impressed. But in the meantime, I've just been working on sales and RFP writing and copy editing and various things like that. So there's a little bit of creativity going on for my office for the other side of things. But that's kind of what's been going on with me. But let's go ahead and get into our topic for today. I was listening to another podcast because, of course, I'm obsessed with, other podcast research all the time. And lately, it's been a lot of Mel Robbins stuff because she's killing it online right now with all of her interviews and her tour that she's about to go on for in-person podcasting and motivational speaking tour. And her book for the Let Them Theory is out, and I'm sure she'll be doing like book signings and events and things like that in the next coming months. So if you're into that, again, I'll link it there just to show you what it is that I'm referencing throughout this episode. But I wanted to talk about a specific podcast episode because the other day when I was walking Dirks in the morning, that seems to be one of the best times when I receive information, or for whatever reason, that's a moment during my day where I'm not processing anything else. I'm not really thinking about much else. And so I get a lot of my ideas or intuitive, this is going to sound so crazy, my intuitive conversations with myself. I guess I just kind of start thinking about a concept or a topic, and I start kind of talking it out in my head, what exactly it is I would want to say, or what would I value out of the information I just listened to, what could be useful for my show. So I took a bunch of notes during this interview that Mel did. And as I kept writing notes, I took a significant amount of notes on this one. And I realized that this was an episode that I wish 2021 or 2022 Amanda could have heard. I wish that this was an episode that I had found when I was really struggling. This would have been an episode where right after I left the FBI, it would have been so helpful to listen to. It would have been so validating. This is the episode that I was missing. And this was these were tools that I had never thought about ever. And I want to kind of reshare my thoughts about this and kind of go through it with you, bullet point by bullet point, and just kind of explain my thought process with this and why I found this particular episode useful. But let's jump right in. So Mel Robbins was a motivational speaker, author, podcaster, and former lawyer and TV show host, etc. She's been dominating the media for 20 years at least, and has really taken her career off exponentially in the motivational mindset and self-improvement space lately, especially through her podcast. I believe it reached a #1 show on Apple or Apple Podcasts and beat out Joe Rogan. So she's killing it and absolutely impressive with her guest list. But she interviewed a woman named Dr. Martha Beck. Martha Beck is an American author, life coach, speaker, and sociologist. She has a bachelor's, master's, and a PhD from all from Harvard University. And her father was Hugh Nibley, a deceased scholar of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and apologist. And so she has left the church a long, long time ago and started a new life, and has written many books about finding your North Star, moving beyond your anxiety, how she left the saints and lost herself and found her way back to her true purpose and her higher calling. But she has created the Wayfinder Life Coach training as a powerful and highly effective way to help you master your skills and navigating yourself towards happiness and success in your life. And I believe she was also considered Oprah's life coach for a long time. So she's been around doing lots of different research, and Mel considered her a life goal for her to have interviewed Martha. And so I thought it was really great to not only hear about a brand new influence in the wellness and life coaching space that I had never heard of before, but to meet Martha and listen to her perspective for how to learn how to use what she calls selective attention to get unstuck, sink into your suffering, like not avoiding it, but actually sinking into it and understanding it, and then why it's important to actually embrace your feelings of directionless. And it really hit me. I don't know why, but at one point when Martha started to tell her story, she was explaining, that she had grown up in the Mormon church and how restrictive that lifestyle was, and she didn't really realize it until she had moved away and went to Harvard and started doing research in anxiety and trauma, and a lot of her childhood memories of abuse started coming back up, and she was realizing all these things about herself and her identity that the stories that she had been telling herself for years were not true, and who she was and what she wanted and what she liked and what she had perceived as normal were not real and weren't genuine to who she was as a person. And so she started to have autoimmune issues and stress issues and sleep issues and identity issues, and it all kind of bubbled over until she realized that she needed to start telling herself the truth, start telling other people the truth, and stop lying about who she was as a person, what she wanted out of life. And when she finally made that decision, everything in her life changed. Initially it was very rough, very lonely. She felt directionless, but she realized that by telling the truth about who she is and what she wants, it helped focus her attention on what it is that would actually elevate her life rather than trying to focus on the story that everybody else needed to be told. And so it really hit me because she was explaining how her entire world fell apart when she wrote her first book about how and why she left the Mormon church. And her entire family disowned her, pretty much. They disowned her and shut her out and didn't believe her story and did not believe that her abuse had actually happened and tried to gaslight her. And she lost her friends and lost her family members that way. And it was really, really difficult. And she said, she described it as everything left and everything arrived. And that hit me. Out of everything that she explains in the episode, that statement that when I decided to make those changes in my life, I realized that as everything left, everything also arrived. People in this space are always trying to tell you that, when one door closes, God opens a window, or when one door closes, another one opens, or rejection is redirection, or whatever. It's an obvious statement, but it doesn't actually hit you until you actually go through it. Similar to when people ask you, what would you do if you were put in XYZ situation? You can theorize, right? You can make an educated guess based on your understanding of who you are about what you would do. But unless you're actually thrown or put into that situation in reality, you don't really know how you would react right then and there. But when she said everything left and everything arrived, that statement immediately resonated with me, because just recently, within the last 2 years, there have been so many moments, last 5 years, I guess, actually, there have been so many moments in my life where I have felt so confused why everything that I had worked so hard for was quote unquote leaving me or getting further and further away. The goalpost was moving further and further away. I would hit one or this is a horrible podcast to listen to for sports references, and I am so sorry to anyone that loves sports who's listening to this. Please don't hold it against me. You make it you make it to the end zone, you get the goal or you score the goal, but then the next goalpost just moves further and further away. So you get to a certain accomplishment and you're like, wow, this should have been it. This should have been enough. This should have opened the door that I needed next. And it doesn't. Or it keeps moving, or it leaves, or the opportunity's gone completely, or what you thought was supposed to be your next ladder rung actually breaks underneath your feet. And it's kind of like, geez, what's going on? And so she talked about that was kind of one of her many epiphany moments in her life. But in her early 20s, after she had written the book, everything left and everything arrived. It explained everything to me. That is exactly what's been happening in my life. Everything that I thought I used to be, everything that I used to tell myself, everything that I used to think that I wanted, it's either gone now or it is slowly going away, so that there is room for everything else that I was supposed to have or that I was supposed to do to arrive. And little did I know that the suffering and the anxiety and the guilt and the frustration and the depression and the self-hatred that I was dealing with and feeling and sitting with, that suffering was arriving on purpose. That emotional, uncomfortable sensation was there for a reason. And if I had been listening to my body initially, I probably could have learned more quickly what was going on, or I could have processed those feelings faster. But you don't know what you don't know, right? So she interviews Martha Beck, and Martha continues to explain with her new book that came out about living beyond your anxiety. She explains that there are two things in life that are always going to be with you, no matter what. You're not going to be able to escape that. And those two things are suffering and the body. And suffering and the body are the two best ways to learn what it is your purpose is supposed to be, or what direction you're supposed to go in, what decision it is you're going to make. She kind of describes it as suffering and the body are your two best friends who are going to walk through life with you. You have to go into your body, learning to listen to what your body is saying, to learn where your physical pain is located, and how your friend, quote unquote, your friend, suffering, feels about that pain. What does that physical pain actually represent? Are you mad, sad, glad, or scared? Those are the 4 categories of pain. Wherever that pain is located inside your body, that kind of tells you what it is that you are supposed to be reacting towards, or what that feeling is supposed to lead you down, what path to follow based on those 2 things. And so a lot of times humans want to avoid pain. We are naturally evolutionarily pleasure seekers. You have fight or flight for a reason. Your point is to survive. If you stay inside of your pain for too long, your brain, your lizard brain, your evolutionary brain is trying to avoid as much pain as possible because it wants you to live. It wants you to continue. It wants your body to survive and sustain itself. And so it's natural for us to be avoidant towards uncomfortable things or painful things. But Dr. Beck explains that you have to let that physical pain or that feeling, one of those 4, the mad, sad, scared, or glad, fill you up. And you need to sink all the way into that feeling to the point that it's actually overflowing into the rest of the world. Because when you relax into that pain, you relax into that fear, that anxiety, that situation, you're actually no longer resisting the change that is coming upon your life. And when you just let it be, you are going to start to release the heaviness on yourself. So as uncomfortable as it is, you cannot avoid your own suffering, because your suffering is actually a mechanism that you can use throughout your life to tell you what's really going on, to tell you or help explain to you how you really feel and what it is you want to do next. And Martha's book further goes into the different types of, or the different sources of suffering, There are 2 different sources of suffering based on her definitions. And so clean versus dirty. Dirty suffering comes from your own internal thoughts about an event. And the vast majority of our suffering comes from the thoughts of these events, not the actual traumatic event itself. And that suffering and fear are actually your allies and your friends, because suffering and fear are going to tell you everything that you need to know about what to do next if you just let it speak. And the dirty thoughts that suffering, fear, anxiety, being scared, those dirty thoughts that come from those emotions are caused by those emotions, but the opposite of those dirty thoughts is actually what you need to reverse yourself with in order to make it to your awakening. So let me see if I can try and explain this enough or better. The way that she was explaining it in the podcast episode, if the majority of your suffering comes from dirty thoughts or dirty suffering by having a negative mindset, negative self-talk, negative motivation, living kind of in the dark space of your mind, or misinterpretations of an event, or immediately assuming the worst out of an event, and like it lets you sit in the suck or in a spiral. When you stay there, those dirty thoughts could be, I'm pathetic, I'm never going to be able to get out of this bed, or I'm so sick, my autoimmune disease is going to take over my life, or I have PCOS, I'm never going to be able to be a mom or be successful with a partner, or my endometriosis is going to prevent me from ever having sex again, or ever moving forward with a romantic relationship, or nobody's going to want me because I can't do X, Y, or Z, or I just lost my job, I'm such a loser, like I'm never going to recover or get out of my debt. Just the cycle of saying the worst possible things to yourself. These dirty thoughts can be reversed, and the opposite of your dirty thought is what you need to say to yourself in order to take a step forward towards your awakening. Dr. Beck asks Mel to give an example of a dirty thought. And so Mel explained, she'd spent about 16 years of her life trying to get out of a really deep debt that she and her husband got into when they tried to go into the restaurant business, and it totally tanked. And so Mel still deals with deep financial guilt, where she kind of worries about ever going back to a place like that. And so in her mind, despite all the success that she has reached, all the accolades that she's getting for being, this amazing speaker and podcaster and motivational author and stuff, despite that, and despite having paid that debt off, she's so afraid that now she's going to lose it all and do something stupid. And so Mel says, I'm worried that despite all my success, I'm just going to make a stupid mistake again. Dr. Beck's response to that dirty thought was, you need to tell yourself, the next time you think that, you need to say, I'm about to do something brilliant. And then Mel said, okay, well, what about for my daughter? My daughter had a really bad breakup and she's been so sad, and it's been really hard to watch her try and recover from that and deal with it. What should I say to her? What should her thought be? And she says, okay, well, if the dirty thought is, I've been broken up with and now I'm never going to find love again, or I made a huge mistake, that was my person, why did I give them up? You need to say instead, I will always find love again, and I will always find love everywhere. And so by reversing the dirty thought, using the opposite statement of your dirty thought or your bad negative mentality, you can think the dirty thought, but then you need to immediately reverse it into what's the opposite. And by using that selective attention tool, you are training your mind now to actually show you what to look for. Because there's all the tens of 20 years or more, probably, maybe even longer than I've been around, a psychological phenomenon called confirmation bias. And so when you you bought a Jeep and you're driving your Jeep around, and now all of a sudden you see Jeeps everywhere, or you've been wanting to buy these new shoes and all of a sudden you see all these ads are coming for you for, buy this pair. And then you see all these people out on the trails that are also wearing those exact pairs. And you're like, dang, now I see this everywhere that I go. If you flip your dirty thought and use the selective attention tool that Dr. Beck tries to explain, flipping your dirty thought will teach your brain to look for the positive instead. It's going to start showing you in the world the reversed things instead. If you're afraid you just got broken up with, or you're afraid you're never going to find the one, or your love life isn't going to change, you have to start saying to yourself, I will always find love again. I will always find love everywhere. And it puts you into a better mood, saying that to yourself, using that flipped mindset, and it helps alleviate the pain that you might be having. So when you're heartbroken, I know for me, the last major heartbreak I had was a lot of headache. I think a lot of that probably came from crying. So my head was stuffed up all the time. So it just felt so heavy, and my heart in and of itself just felt empty, right? Like it felt like somebody had just pulled it out and just took it with them. And like almost like there was a cavity in my chest, just empty. And you do have that fear. You do worry, like, I'm never going to find love again. And it makes you so sensitive or hesitant to believe anything that anybody else says, or to trust anything that anybody else, a compliment that anybody else ever gives you, because you're kind of like, yeah, okay. And so what? The last guy or the last girl said that too. And the last person I was with said that too. And then they left, or then this happened. And you can't let yourself dig in that hole or stay in that dirty thought, that dirty pain, because it's not the truth. It's not the truth forever, right? You have to train your brain to look for what it is you want. You have to, and this kind of loops all the way back into the manifestation stuff, into the vision board stuff. I'm looking at my vision boards every day. I've written out my affirmations on all my mirrors. I'm writing it down in my journal every night. Like, I am repeating these lessons, repeating these reversed dirty thoughts over and over and over again, trying to work on my selective attention, work on the things that, like, okay, I'm lost. I don't know where to look. So my reversed dirty thought lately is, everything has left you so that everything can arrive. It's kind of like, all right, I admit to what's going on in my reality, but I also admit that the good thing is on its way. Everything has left me so that everything else can arrive. Everything has changed from what I used to want in life to make space for what was meant for me. Like A to B to A to B to A to B. Like, I am not letting myself sit in a place where I'm going to tell myself that I don't deserve what's coming for me, because it's simply not true. And it's not true for you either, because you deserve everything that's coming, everything that it is that you want out of this life, that you're willing to work for, that the universe can give you. When you are open to it, it will come. It may not come on the timeline that you thought it would come on, but it's coming. And so I loved the way that she kind of just presented the same thoughts, the same information that we've all been circling around. If you're on the wellness space or following any of the inspirational, motivational speaker industry people, all of these things are the same. They've been saying this for so long. Everybody has. I get it. But I just liked the perspectives that Dr. Beck had, and the way that she tried to break it down even smaller, even simpler to absorb. If you have a dirty thought, reverse it. Because that reversed dirty thought, that opposite of the dirty thought, the clean thought, is the statement you need to tell yourself to help you through your awakening. It was great to listen to because it clicked for me. So use selective attention to train your brain, to train your mind, to show you what to look for in this life. Your purpose doesn't always show up immediately or make itself known. But one way to find that out is to kind of track the feelings of joy that are inside your body. So following along with, as she said in the beginning of the show, your suffering and your body are your two friends that are with you for life. Listen to the suffering, understand where it's located inside your body, understand the associated dirty thought that comes with that suffering, and find the opposite and lean into that opposite statement, and it'll help you. If you're like me and you are still trying to find your purpose in this life, and you're still feeling like you're just wandering around doing the best you can, it's okay. So many of us are out there in the world just trying to get by and trying to figure out what it is you really want out of this life, especially as things get crazier in the news or in your community or in the world, and you feel lost and you don't really know where to structure your life or where to put your energy or your purpose. And I truly believe that if you are open to it, it will make itself known. But learning to listen to the joy that comes through you or that you feel in your body will help. And I have felt that way last year, especially when I was doing a lot of interviews with guests and stuff. It really resonated with me that, like, this is fun. I like this. I like challenging myself in this way. I want to do that again. I want to keep doing that. I don't know how to make that feeling happen again, but that's it. That's that opposite dirty thought, is that feeling. Dr. Beck quoted the Buddha and said that the Buddha used to say a lot, wherever you find water, you can know if it's the ocean because no matter what it looks like, the ocean always tastes of salt. And when you find enlightenment, you will always recognize it no matter what it looks like, because enlightenment always tastes like freedom. And it can be so scary, scary as hell to serve in your purpose, but it is free. You are free. So when you say that you feel lighter and freer, that's a track. That's how you know you're on the right path. I love that, because I also don't know very much about Buddha, or I think in high school we had to read a book about enlightenment called Siddhartha, and I'll admit I don't remember very much from it, but it was all about in this person's enlightenment path. And so when Dr. Beck brought up this quote, when you find enlightenment, you will always recognize it no matter what it looks like, because enlightenment always tastes of freedom. And so it's so hard sometimes to just say to somebody like, oh, well, just learn to listen to your intuition, learn to listen to your body, learn to hear what the universe is telling you, learn to listen to what your God or your deity is saying to you about where to go or what to do with your life. And you're kind of like, yeah. How do I hear that? Where do I even start? What are you talking about, you woo-woo person? And I liked that quote because it's the most direct metaphor that I've heard in a while. What are you doing in your life that helps you feel free? What moment, what experience, what time during your day do you feel most free? Because that is what you need to lean into if you want to find your purpose in life. Anything that you're doing where you feel at ease, at peace, free, like you are truly leaning into who you are, and you feel joyful with your actions or your words or your creative process in that moment, it's just flowing to you and through you. That is what you need to lean into, where it actually just feels good. Like there's a light of warmth in your body when you do those things. That's it. That is your body trying to tell you this is it. This is part of your path, or this is what will bring you purpose. And so sometimes it's really, really subtle and it's hard to identify. But I loved that quote because enlightenment always tastes of freedom. When you're free to be who you are and to live how you want to and to love the way that you want to love, nothing feels better than that. And so that's what I would tell somebody to try and look for. Start taking notes about those moments during your day where you feel that way. That'll tell you so much about what direction to go in if you are feeling lost and without purpose right now. Lean into that. That's what I've been trying to do and take notes on, especially because those moments have been very few and far between over the last, 5 years or so for me. But Dr. Beck says that those feelings of freedom might be subtle, and as you learn to feel what sets you free, what removes that suffering and replaces it with joy, that's how you know the next step to take. That's how you know that, hey, the universe is kind of tapping on your shoulder. This is it. This is what you want. And as those steps start to add up, you go, oh my God, that's my purpose. That's how you get to it. And so Mel asks her, well, how do you define purpose? You're explaining how to move through your anxiety and your fear and your suffering to flip the switch. And as you flip the switch over time, you may start to get subtle clues that you can pick up on in your body where the joy radiates from. But how do you actually define purpose? And Dr. Beck defines purpose as that which brings you the greatest satisfaction and joy as a being on this earth, and that allows you to contribute the most satisfaction and joy to the rest of the world. That's your purpose. Because it's where your deep gladness exists and the world's deep hunger meet. I believe that was actually a quote from, she says, Fred Boechner? I'll see if I can link that. So she defines it as purpose is that which brings you the greatest satisfaction and joy as a human being on this earth, that also allows you to contribute the most satisfaction and joy to the rest of the world. And then the other definition was it's the pivotal cross point, where the cross section between your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger, where they meet. I suppose that makes sense, right? Like in business, how do you know you're going to be a successful business? You need to find a target audience, know your niche, and solve a problem for that particular group, and it'll, take off. If you have a solution to something that they want or that's missing in society, it makes sense that if you can get to that cross section between what you know you're good at, what you can create, and what the consumers are asking for, your product will do well. So it makes sense that your purpose would have to be something that brings deep, resounding joy from within you, but that deep, resounding joy needs to resonate with the hunger of the world. Are you providing something to others that is lacking in their own life? Because if whatever resonates with you can be radiated and resonate with someone else, that is going to bring true purpose. So Dr. Beck in the interview continues on to kind of explain that you always have the ability to find your purpose, but in order to live inside the self and identify with your self, capital self, there is no such thing as a defining circumstance or a decisive moment that's going to actually set you free, because all of your feelings of captivity from your suffering are coming from that dirty mind, the dirty thoughts. And so the fear-based mind is what you have to work on to stop yourself, to prevent yourself from holding your own self back. And she realized and explains that, throughout her own life, she noticed that the feeling of being stuck is what paralyzed her the most. That was the actual torture, just that feeling of stuckness versus the physical pain she might have been in due to sickness or injury or her divorce or whatever. It was the feeling of being stuck that tortured her. And she had to shift that feeling. And in order to do that, that's kind of where she made up the selective attention tools, that process. Like, okay, the first question she would always ask herself, all right, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. There's nowhere for me to go. And that feeling of being stuck is what caused all my suffering. Okay, so what's the opposite? I'm free. I'm free. I can go in any direction. So reverse the dirty thought. What does it become? The opposite thought. All right, I can go in any direction. What can I do to make that statement true? If I want to go in any direction, then I need to find a way in which to make that statement true. Even if I find just one small speck of sand in this giant sea of pain, what is one thing I can do right now to move me in the direction that I believe now? That new opposite thought, that new I can go in any way, go in any direction. What can I do right now to move that way? Because, where your attention goes, your life goes. Where you're focusing your energy, where you're focusing your thoughts, where you're focusing your affirmations or your selective attention, where your energy goes, your life flows. And that is just so crucial. So where can you focus that makes you feel free? Where are those moments where you are free? And how do you channel back to that? How do you get to a place where sinking into your suffering is actually useful for you, because you know that, okay, if I embrace this completely, I can flip it, because as soon as I understand what this suffering is telling me, I can trigger my mind to say the opposite statement. And then I can find the path, because then I can reach the joy. I can make a decision about what to do next. And so the next time you might be realizing, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do next. This job is ruining me, or my career's in shambles, or my marriage is stalling. I'm failing my classes, or I hurt my friends. I've lost this person in my life, or, I don't know where to go. The path I'm on right now is great. It suffices, but I don't feel anything at the end of the day. I'm actually just a shell of a human, and all my interactions and relationships are shallow rather than being deep or inspiring. What do I do? What direction am I supposed to go in? How do I get out of here? I'm stuck. You got to flip it and say, I'm free. I can go in any direction. I trust myself to make the next move. I trust myself to get out of here. Okay, look around you. What can you do right now to make that statement true? Because where your attention goes, your life goes. So where are you free? And follow that. And Dr. Beck also, kind of closes out with some of her thoughts that while it might be hard to let go of the only thing that you may have ever known, the thing that's actually hurting you, the thing that's actually killing you, the thing that's actually destroying your joy, because it's comfortable, you understand it, you've been around it, you're familiar with it. Familiarity might not actually be the most helpful thing. It feels it's comforting because you're familiar with it, but if it's harming you and keeping you in pain, you have to let it go. You've got to burn that bridge. She says you have to burn every bridge but love. If there's a bridge that's connecting you to suffering, tragedy, pain, lack of authenticity, it's going to kill you. Burn it. Get rid of it. And all of the thoughts that we are told to think are kind of like clouds, So if you think that I'm not good enough, that's a huge, huge cloud bank. And as long as you believe that thought, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve XYZ, whatever, the more cloudy your life is going to get. And as long as you believe that thought, you're never going to see the other possibilities in your life. You're never going to see those metaphorical doors opening, those metaphorical windows opening, showing up, because you're so consumed by these cloudy, dirty thoughts all the time. So you got to get rid of them. So Dr. Beck kind of explains that if you are dealing with all these cloudy, dirty thoughts and you can't, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of a situation, but you want to get out of that, pretty much where does that leave you? You have 2 built-in compasses that are always going to be with you. Like she said in the very beginning, you've got your suffering, which is the pain that it manifests and the feeling that you're manifesting that's hurtful, and your body. So you have to lean back into those 2 internal compasses and learn how to read them, because they are always going to try and turn you towards the true north. And no matter how cloudy it gets, no matter how depressed or lost or confused or frustrated, guilty, disappointed you may be, the most reliable things you can pay attention to are your body and the suffering that you're feeling, and learning to listen to what it's actually trying to tell you. Because in Dr. Beck's opinion, life is going to give you suffering as a gift, and that gift is supposed to stop you from going in any direction that is not your true north. So learning that you can come into the present moment, you need to come into what's actually happened to you. You need to come into the things that would normally annihilate you. And when you lean into that and sink into all of those painful, uncomfortable things, sinking into them are actually going to help set you free. And so she wrote a book about anxiety and how to react to it, because people that she had been studying for her projects were using anxiety tools, mainstream available things, cognitive behavioral therapy, using various techniques and stuff to help deal with their anxiety. But it was really hard to break the anxiety loop, because she realized that physically in your brain, people are still getting stuck there. You might be able to alleviate the anxiety symptoms with medication, but truly practicing how to get yourself unstuck was the key. And that you have to use creativity and that selective attention to get yourself out of that. And I absolutely loved this episode and the things that Dr. Beck was saying, because it's true. I know that it's true. I didn't realize that is what I have been doing for the last 2 years, but you have to use the way that your brain is structured, and, the artsy, creative, loving, and free-flowing side of your brain is on one end, and then the logical, anxious, fight or flighty, focusing other side of your brain is on the other side. And so they talk to each other all day, the 2 sides of your brain, but when you're going through a particular experience, as anxiety spikes, your creativity drops. And so there's a lot of studies that show that when your anxiety's peaked, you really just cannot operate at a creative level. There's not as much joy. There's not as much expansion or openness, right? And again, I'm deeply paraphrasing so much of this, simplifying it. But in the opposite way, the creativity, there are less studies available about how creativity and art and the selective attention can do the opposite, where if you boost that creative moment in your brain, it actually drops your feelings of anxiety and guilt and fear and stuckness or directionlessness. And I loved that, because it's true. In 2023, I can't explain why I started my show. I know that I've always wanted to have a show, but why I picked that day in October to start recording myself or start editing these videos and trying to come up with whatever it is that I was going to create, I can't tell you why, but I know that just starting changed my life forever. Just being in a zone or opening up my brain subconsciously, or receiving a vibration or a level of sound or whatever it was that came to me in that moment that goes, just turn it on and try. Just see what happens. Turn it on and try and learn as you go, has alleviated so much of my anger and sadness and depression and feelings of guilt and grief. I'm still dealing with them. As you guys know, like if you're an avid listener, you know I still talk about my fears about where I'm going with my life and what I want to do with my life and where I'm trying to find happiness now. But I have felt more joy when I lean into the creative side. I have been doing so much research about podcasting and building a website and recording equipment and video editing and leaning into a side of myself that I haven't done in a very, ever, if not a really long time. And so the learning curve is huge, but I don't mind it so much because I feel good when I'm doing it. And that's how I know I need to lean into this harder. Like, that's how I know I need to find ways to bring that to fruition or find ways to incorporate it more into my life and not listening to other people wanting me to suffer, not listening to other people's comments or doubts or negative thoughts or dirty thoughts, as Dr. Beck says, not listening to the dirty thought that says, you've never done it before, you look like an idiot. Okay, well, I'm learning a new skill. I'm going to get better at it. Flipping the mindset. I use creativity to pull me out of a hole, and I know it works. And I think it can work for you too. I think these selective attention tools that Dr. Beck talked about would have been so helpful for me years ago. And I'm glad that I figured it out eventually. I'm glad that I got to this point today. But I wanted to share this episode with you and these insights from this episode with you because this was an episode where I know that younger Amanda needed to hear it. She desperately needed to hear it to know that, like, hey, you do not have to stay here. If this feels bad, this suffering is for a reason. If you're having this anxiety at your office, if you're having this metaphorical, like, hitting your head against a brick wall over and over again, like, you don't need to keep doing it. You don't need to stay feeling stuck. It's that terror and the anger at the path not working. That's not you failing. That's something else in the universe telling you to turn around or go in a different direction. Things falling apart doesn't mean that you built the house wrong. Maybe you bought the wrong tools. Like, I don't know, but like, just because it's not right doesn't mean that everything else in your life is wrong. Like, just because it's not right doesn't mean that, like, the intentions you had behind your dream are wrong. The context needs to change. The purpose can stay the same. The mission can stay the same. Empowerment, connection, and purpose. Empowerment, creativity, and purpose. Empowerment, purpose, and community. Your EPC can stay true. It's just the context of how you bring that to life has to change. And if I could have told her that years ago, she could have avoided so much suffering, so much sadness, so much blaming herself, so much hyperfixation on being a bad person, being a not worthy person, like, being angry at God, like being like, how dare you give me a dream to make it come to fruition just for me to fail so miserably and so publicly at it, or thinking I had failed. That's hurtful. That's shameful. Why would somebody put that on my heart to go after that for it to not be right? That's messed up. But the truth is, I think the purpose was always been the same, but the context of how that purpose was supposed to manifest itself had to change. And if I had heard this episode, or I had received this information, if I had known about Dr. Beck years ago, it could have helped me so much. And that is what I want to do with my own show. That is why I'm sharing so openly about being uncomfortable and confused and angry about my life and my purpose and not knowing what the hell I'm doing. And I don't want people to feel as alone as I did, ever. I don't want people to feel as bad as I did having to pivot. I would love to get to a place where people can realize that understanding your suffering is an optimal thing, because life is telling you exactly in that moment, it's time to pivot. This is what we need to do. You already know what to do in your mind, because all you have to do is flip that dirty thought into a clean thought, and that'll give you direction. It sounds so simple, and it's not. Like, it in the interview, you're going to be like, oh, I got that. I can do that. But actually practicing day in and day out to retrain your brain to use selective attention, that takes effort. Learning to live in your present moment and believe the positive thought takes effort. So this is not going to be an easy path for any of you that might be feeling lost and without purpose right now. Like, it's not, it takes time. It really does. And you have to be open to doing something silly and creative and artsy and getting out of your head, but into your body. And how do you separate the two when your head's freaking attached to your body? As cliche as it sounds, where your attention goes, your life goes. So if you can find a way to be creative or to get out of your head and into your body, the universe, God, Allah, Yahweh, your intuition, whatever it is that you believe speaks to you, it's going to start telling you things. It will. And leaning into that is how you find your purpose. Leaning into listening to what your body says or what your suffering says or what your quote unquote universe, whatever your version of the universe, your deity says, that's helping you with purpose. That's going to help you design the life you want. Because if you can flip a negative mindset into the positive one and follow it, actually just saying the positive thought isn't enough. You've got to follow through on that mindset. If you follow through on what that positive thought is, you will build your path. You will dig yourself out of that, or you will get yourself out of that hole. But it's up to you to follow it. It's up to you to interpret what your true north really is and find ways to get to it, even if it's really small, even if it's subliminal messaging, really subtle. Lean into it. And for the love of God, use creativity to pull yourself out. I am a prime example of how that works. I know that it works. If you don't want to be a podcaster, don't be a podcaster. Don't put it out there on the internet if you don't want to do that. Fine. But if you've been dreaming about painting, go buy the supplies, set it up in a room, and paint something. It doesn't matter. Just pull a brush out, swipe it across the, the canvas. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't think about making it perfect. Just think about, this is how I feel, and this is what I want to show today. And then keep going. Just keep practicing. If you want to be a writer because you know that you've been a really good public speaker and you enjoy the written word and you're an avid reader and you have all these creative thoughts and storylines and storytelling in your mind, spend time writing it down. Buy a journal that's just for your notes, just for your thoughts, for storylines and what you would like to write about. You don't have to show it to anybody, but just setting aside time in your day to write. Doesn't have to be a good story, doesn't have to be a best-selling novel, doesn't have to be the next Harry Potter or ACOTAR or whatever the heck people are reading these days. But just do it. Write it down and hold on to it and go back and edit later if you want. Just brain dump out, and I think you'll be surprised at what flows back to you through that joy when you're listening to it, to your body. That's all I have for you for this week. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and that you're able to pull some nuggets of knowledge out of this. And I'm not just speaking into the void. I'm always afraid I'm speaking into the void, but I wish you the best as you practice using selective attention to, train your brain and train your mind to show you what to look for. I hope that you go through this week and you find joy and happiness, and you learn to listen to whatever the suffering is in your body, and you learn to flip it to a different mindset. And I really hope that you have the courage to follow through on that new purpose. I hope you have the courage to follow through on that opposite dirty thought, because that's what's going to help you find joy in your life. That's the answer to your next step. That's how you pivot. That's the direction you need to go in, because I think your body always wants you to follow your true north. It's just learning how to listen to it and agree with it that you're going to get there. So have a great day, great evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review. As always, please share with your friends, your family, your loved ones, aunts, uncles, nieces, cousins, anybody you think that would benefit from this episode. Please share. Tag us online. Love seeing you guys on social media. We're still getting up and running on TikTok and YouTube, but I'm going to link everything in the description notes if you want discount codes, if you want to send me an email. We're working on a website, so that email is now hello@podcastforthelost.com. I know, look at me growing up. So you can send me an email, hello@podcastforthelost.com. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, YouTube. You can subscribe. And don't forget, leave me some 5 stars. I can comment directly back with you obviously on YouTube episodes and the Spotify episodes, but you can leave a direct rating on Apple, and I can comment directly there. So I love it. Thank you so much. Sharing it, liking it, subscribing, leaving the 5 stars means the absolute world to me. So I always appreciate it when any of you reach out and do that. So thank you so much. And I hope you have the best week ever. And just remember, wanderers are always welcome.